Welcome back. We are completing the tutorial for the use of the base payroll calculator. We've already completed step 1, part 1 of this tutorial, which covered how to use the payroll calculator step 1. We successfully completed that, which in essence populated the base system with the HRMS data for the executive office. We're now going to proceed with part 2 and the final step of this particular tutorial, which is going to cover steps 2 and steps 3 of this particular process. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with step 2. This particular step is going to allow us to validate the information that's come in, and it will also allow us to enter in end dates for any staff that we know will not be completing the full fiscal year. In doing that, it will allow the payroll calculator to only calculate data up until the end date, and then it won't calculate labor information or labor cost information for the rest of the year. So to start, we clicked on the user defined changes step 2 process that brought us to this screen. Of course, there's only going to be a find an existing value option. Now, you have to type in your user ID name, but keep in mind, if you use best practices, the person that actually ran the first step of the payroll calculator is the only person that will be able to complete step 2. Now, again, this step is optional, and usually we do not have a lot of changes that need to be made on this screen that can't be made in another part of the process outside of the payroll calculator process. Also, we typically don't have a lot of people who have end dates that you'd like to enter ahead of time. So keep in mind it's optional, but if you are using best practices, just provide the person that completed step 1 with the information to enter into step 2 and let them go ahead and do that. I put in my user ID. I'm going to click search. And what it's going to give me, and you won't see on your screen the detail, the actual names of the employees, but you should still be able to see the titles. And I'm going to reduce this screen here so you can see the entire screen. So this, in essence, lists all of the employees for the executive office. And notice down at the bottom, it also includes some vacant employee information. Now, some may look at this and be a little concerned that there are a number of vacant employees, but for the last budget, this many positions may not have originally been approved with the budget. This happens at times when the HRMS system had not been updated to reflect the employee information, and so it may be that base is pulling from HRMS system that's showing positions that are not necessarily authorized but that are active in the system, or it can be that there is some coding information where there may be positions being paid out of one DEP ID, department ID, but may not necessarily be reporting to that particular DEP ID. Not to say that that's the case with these, but I just want to give you a couple examples. So I wouldn't be too concerned about these at this point. You will be able to delete them on Form 1, which we have a tutorial for that available for you to take a look at on how to do that. Key here is you want to make sure you kind of look over the list and make sure all your employees are showing. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention to this here. This is the number that is showing, because the executive office doesn't have hundreds of employees. All of them are showing on one screen. You may have times where if you have hundreds or thousands of employees that the screen will only show the first 500, and then you have to make sure you're scrolling through to look at the other ones. So notice the columns. Of course, you got your employee ID, name, job code, position number, the department ID number that they have from a budget perspective. This will not reflect any kind of subdivisions that you may have that may be recorded in the financials or even in HRMS, but may not necessarily be reflected in the base system. And then we have this final calculation end date. This is the field that you would use to enter in end dates for employees. So let's say you know that this employee will be retiring during the next fiscal year. You would actually go ahead and you can either click this calendar to choose a date. Let's say we believe that she would be retiring December 1st, 2015. It'll populate that information, or you could actually type it in. For this tutorial purposes, I'm not going to enter in any adjustments for this particular step, but I just wanted to make you aware that this was an option that was available, and you're more than welcome to enter in the data here, although you will also be able to make adjustments on another screen as adjustments to the dollar amount. So that completes step 2. Let's go ahead and scroll down. At the bottom of the screen, there's a save option. You can save if you made changes, or you can choose not to. It's up to you. And I'm going to navigate back to payroll calculator step 3. Okay, so now we move to payroll calculator step 3. This is the step that's actually going to take everything that you have pulled in from HRMS in step 1 and any changes you may have made in step 2, and it's going to take that information and calculate labor costs for those positions based on variables entered by HR and assumptions built into the process by the base team. Now, as I said before in the first step in the last tutorial, you have to make sure that you're using the same run control ID that you used to run for step 1. You will never use this add a new value tab when you're working within payroll calculator step 3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be enter the find an existing value. I'm going to click search, so I have a list of all the run controls that are available to me. And if you recall, what we used in step 1 was EOPRFY16. I'm going to click that. Takes me to the next screen. Notice here the budget period is the current active budget period, which is 2016. You may see another number depending on what budget year you're working on. And then you have something here that's called a scenario. Requested scenario is the scenario that you want to work in for your final copy of this budget, and it is the scenario that will be submitted to the executive office. You also have the option of running this information into backup scenarios, 10% cut scenarios. There's a lot of options here, and it just means that you will run it into a different scenario where you can manipulate the data and make changes as needed to kind of see what kind of options you have and what's the impact of having making different choices with your different costs and your different revenue. So those are fine if you're developing scenarios. You just have to make sure that you change or copy that form back into the requested scenario so that you have that final form to send to the executive office. So we're going to go ahead and proceed now. I do want to call attention to this warning here that says this process will replace any data previously loaded to the form 1, which is where in this system you will be making changes by adding, deleting positions, changing labor costs. So what this means is, in essence, kind of what I alluded to before, if you run this process and you have 3 other people who are working on it and they've made changes to the different individual lines for personnel, and then you run this process again, it will delete anything and any work that they have done. So you want to be extremely careful and use extreme caution when you're in this particular form, because anything that you do will override anything or any changes that you've made before. It doesn't add them to what you've done, it overwrites. We're okay with that at this point, so we're going to go ahead and click run, which will take us to a screen that should look familiar. Again, here's the run control ID that it's using, here's the description, and this is the process name. We're going to go ahead and click OK, and at this point the process is running. So just as before, the information will not be available to us until the process is actually successfully run. So we can check that either by clicking here, which is process monitor link that I showed you before, or let's say for some reason you have clicked out of this particular window and you want to get to the process monitor. You could use this menu. You'd go down to People Tools, which will take you to the process monitor folder, and you will be able to see all that information. So as you notice here, this was the last process that we ran, and run status is that it is still processing. Now this usually takes a while, so I'm going to click refresh again, because keep in mind that this is not an automated this does not automatically refresh, so you have to continue to press the refresh button. Now typically payroll calculator step 1 and especially step 2 usually take a little time because the system has to actually make the calculations individually by each specific personnel and then transfer that data into the tables so that you can make changes to it. If for some reason, this may happen occasionally, you come to the end of the process, you've refreshed, and it tells you that the run status is no success. That means it didn't work, and one of the things that you can do is you can either click into the details section of this. You would click this delete request. You would say OK, which I'm not going to do now because I need it to keep running. And it would actually delete that instance, and then you may want to try to rerun it again. Other times it just may be an issue where there's a bug in the system and you may need to start with payroll calculator step 1, go ahead and start with another control ID and run it and see if that will help resolve the issue. If still that has not happened, or say that your particular process has been running for 15 minutes and it's still not changing, the status is not changing, and it's still saying process, or it still says no success, then you'll want to contact the RCIT help desk. Remember in the subject line to put base and payroll calculator problems. Let them know what the problem is and see if they can fix it, because typically if it's taking too long to run or it's saying no success, it may be a problem within the system that will need to be fixed with IT and not something you can fix yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh again and see if we've gotten anywhere, and as you see now we have a successful run and it's been posted. So that information is now available. Now, just so you can check, there are 2 ways to see a full list of what has come out of this payroll calculator. One would be within the base, navigate to departments, and there is an option called payroll calculation summary. This summary is going to display everything that everything for all of those employees as far as the calculations are concerned. Again, the problem with this is that it's by user ID, and if you are not the one that ran the payroll calculator, you will not have access to this particular summary. So an easy option would be for that person that ran it, they would make sure that they run it, this particular report, this particular summary, and make sure the information is okay. Or they can take that information, download it into Excel, and forward it on to other users to make sure everything has come up okay. So I'm going to pull this up by my user ID, which is test user 01. You don't have to put the process instance because it's going to pull up the last instance that you ran. And although you won't see the employee information, that will be blocked out, you will be able to see the titles. Notice that there is a lot of information here. It includes the Social Security information and the actual cost that the payroll calculator has made. It provides everything. So this is great for if you need to make adjustments. This is a great screen to use if you're validating the information. This is a great screen to use if you're, let's say there's a message put out by the base notifications and it says there's an error and you need to adjust this total by this amount. This is information that you can use to do that. Now, if you want to download this into Excel, you would click this little button here, and what will pop up is it will pop up as an Excel sheet, and you'll be able to save that and send it on to other people. You can make calculation adjustments so that you'll have that information available when you make changes to the actual information for the individuals within your personnel requirements screen. Now, another place that you can check the output would be under your query section. So you would go to your reporting tools, you go to query viewer, and the title of the query is RV underscore employee underscore info. And this will also provide you with information from the payroll calculator. You can either run it to Excel or HTML. HTML is going to give you all the information on screen. You would just click the business unit, which for what we used, it was EO. Budget period, and you have to complete all these fields, is 2016. And my user ID was test user 1. And view the results. And again, this gives you a breakdown. This even gives you, for this particular summary or query, it gives you the salary plan, grade, step, hourly rate, monthly rate. It has a lot of information that you can use for filling out other forms, for making calculations, for making adjustments, and those types of things. So all of that information is available here. So I hope this tutorial has been helpful to you.